This is the Analysing Anfield podcast on the Blood Red channel, bringing you the best tactical and statistical analysis of Liverpool FC.
Hello everybody and welcome to this week's episode of Analysing Anfield, your tactics and analytics podcast, courtesy of the Blood Red channel. I am Josh Williams and I'm joined by, as always, David Hughes. How are you getting on, mate?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you, Josh.
Good. That was very formal, that one, wasn't it? Jesus. Anyway, we need to tackle Liverpool because we had a tough game. We've also got a talking point in the middle that I think people will be glad that we're addressing. And then we're going to look ahead to Watford. Maybe shorter. Again, I seem to say this every week now.
Yeah, it never seems to be though, does it?
No. Well, hopefully that's a positive for the listeners.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, West Ham anyway. It wasn't what we... Well, the result wasn't what we predicted at least. Obviously it finished 3-2 to Liverpool. But it felt like another one of those games that, you know, I suppose the game in two halves shout again. Liverpool were a bit slow again in the first half. And I think Moyes came as expected, right, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely. Although before we get into the numbers, what I will say, just purely from being, you know, in the ground watching it, I thought that Liverpool were off the pace by their standards.
Overall or first half?
More so when the game started. I think they got better the longer the game went on, but certainly in the first half they just looked off the pace, and I don't know if maybe there's an element of fatigue catching up with them now, because it has been a long season, even though we're only in February.
See, we said last week, didn't we, that I'm inclined to think it may be the opposite, and I'm inclined to think that maybe we've hit the reset button after the winter break a bit too much. Obviously, we were almost machine-like for a long period. Then we've had a week off, 2 weeks off, whatever it was, and we've came back knowing that basically the league's shown up. We took an early lead, obviously, against West Ham, and I think we not foot off the gas, because I don't think the foot was ever really on the gas from the start, but just a little bit. I'm trying to get out the right word here.
No, I do agree, but I think they still tie in with each other. So I agreed with that last week, and I still do, that the break has probably given Liverpool more harm than benefit. But I just think it can be a little bit hard to get back up to that intensity when you haven't had a prolonged period off. So, you know, normally in the summer you've got plenty of weeks to recharge. This has kind of been a mini break, and I think it's somewhere in between when it hasn't been enough for them to, you know, fully recharge and get energy levels back up, and now they're not able to rely on kind of momentum that they had before the break, and that's what I mean when I'm saying they just look a little bit laggy, a little bit fatigued. Yeah,
it's just that kind of like robotic way of playing where you're just so well oiled that everything is just coming naturally, and you're not even thinking, and you're just doing the same thing almost every week, and it's consistently delivering results. If you stop doing that for 2 weeks and then try to restart,
after you've already had a long season as well.
Yeah, it can maybe take a few weeks to reach that level again. And I think after the game, obviously I'm looking ahead a bit too much here because we haven't actually addressed the West Ham match yet, but I think Liverpool will benefit from having to reach that intensity to win that match, because obviously we need to reach it very quickly, because we'll have to get to top level before Atletico. Otherwise we're out of that competition. So I think the fact that we had to fight for it until the dying moments against West Ham will benefit us in the upcoming weeks. But we both had the game, weren't we?
Yeah.
And it felt, what's the word? It felt not more nervy, but I'm not really a nervous watcher. I'm not a nervous fan, but during the game it did feel a little bit less under control than usual.
In the balance?
Yeah, a little bit more on the balance, yeah. But despite that, Liverpool, the expected goals on the day, 2.8 for Liverpool and 0.6 for West Ham. 70% possession. And this one especially, I didn't feel this in the ground. We had 25 shots to 7. I just didn't register that when I was watching it.
Yeah, it was... looking afterwards, if you just looked at the game and the numbers, you'd say it was just pure dominance. But on this occasion, I think there is context to be added. Obviously, firstly, Liverpool are top of the league, playing one of the worst sides in the division currently, so you do expect there is going to be some form of dominance there, no matter what. But then secondly, you got to remember that obviously West Ham have come playing quite reserved tactics, haven't they? They're quite compact and they're avoiding retaining possession and things. So I think this game was always going to be a dominant for Liverpool in terms of numbers, but it still felt like there was more. I don't know. There's just, as you touched on earlier, just less control in the game. It did feel uneasy in the ground. It felt like something strange was going on. Maybe it's because Liverpool conceded from a set piece as well. It felt like that was quite bizarre, and just little things didn't feel quite right. Passes were off, and
well, we might as well address what you've just said there right now, because we looked really dodgy from set pieces throughout the game, which is completely uncharacteristic of Liverpool. That just doesn't happen anymore. We deal with every set piece. You might get one where the opposing player gets his head on the ball first, but in this match, there was several that came into the box and either flew right through or weren't dealt with properly, or a West Ham player to get his head to the ball first. And it was just a little bit weird. I looked at the clips back before to see the corners we did face, and I couldn't really see anything specific that West Ham were doing. I mean, they were aiming for near post flick-ons quite a bit.
Yeah, that worked for the goal, didn't it?
Yeah.
Run from Rice and stuff.
Yeah, they were aiming for a few of them. But beyond that, I didn't look like there was anything special. I'm not sure if was Moyes known for doing anything like that at Everton.
Not particularly, no. But then I think the game's already evolved since maybe Moyes was at Everton. 5 or 6 years ago. But no, they tended to be decent in the air, but that was more reliant on good aerial players. So like the likes of Fellaini and Cahill in the side. I mean, maybe I'm doing a disservice. What I'm saying is, when he was at Everton, I wasn't particularly taking notice of any set piece routines, I guess. But I thought let's give West Ham some credit. Actually, they're not bad from set pieces. They've got 9 set piece goals this season now. I think only 4 Premier League sides have more, Liverpool being one of them. And there was obviously a lot of corners as well. 24 corners in total, which is one less than the Premier League record.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
it
was crazy.
Yeah.
One other aspect I noticed from the corners, is that I did notice they were crowding out Alisson a little bit. Michael Antonio in particular was sticking quite tight to Alisson, to the extent that Alisson felt the need to start pushing him before the delivery was hit. That's something you usually do to a keeper who's A bit fragile, or B not the most physically imposing.
Yeah.
So I thought it was an odd tactic to do it to Alisson, but I don't know, I suppose it worked. Sort of had some kind of influence on what was going on, because, as I said, we didn't really deal with.
Funny enough, in the press room at half time, they had the analysis on the Sky Sports, and that was something Carragher was flagging. That they were standing on his toes and making Alisson kind of push them, and it's just a distraction, isn't it? A technique.
Yeah, it's just an alternative way of attacking a set piece, I suppose.
Exactly.
But it's probably the worst I've seen Liverpool deal with set pieces in a single match.
Yeah.
For about 18 months, something like that, since Van Dijk came in, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Do you think Alisson should have done better for the header?
I mean, not really. I do think he gets his hands to it, doesn't he? He gets as close as you can possibly get to saving it. And I think it happens very, very quickly. It's a good connection on the header. It's not just like a weak header, is it? It's got a fair amount of pace on its bottom corner. So, to be honest, I was quite surprised he got a hand to it. I mean, I'll have to probably look at it back, because I'm talking based on being live on the ground here. I haven't actually seen that go back.
Yeah. No replays in the ground either, is there?
What about yourself?
For an average keeper, no, but I think he would probably think afterwards, should have saved that, or I'm good enough to make that save. That type scenario. Yeah, no,
I agree that he would be disappointed with it.
I think he'll be disappointed. Probably could have done a little bit better by his standards.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. But just a little bit more on the whole first half not being particularly good. We mentioned last week about the difference in XG between the first half and the second half. That was against. Who was that against last week?
Norwich, wasn't it?
Norwich, I think. Yeah. This was the same. So Liverpool again generated only 0.6 XG in the first half. Obviously, around 0.6 depending on the model. Whereas in the second half and by the end of the match, obviously it rose to an eventual figure of about 2.8. So I don't know. Is there something to worry about? Is something you've been concerned about? Because I'm used to seeing that's Liverpool failing to go in with a lead, I think, at half-time, 2 consecutive Premier League matches in a row.
It's just quite rare.
Well, it speaks volumes that that's a rare thing, but it does feel quite rare this season. So
yeah, I just wonder whether there's certainly not motivation issues, but when you're beating every single team you face every single week, is there an element of just kind of starting the game off and seeing at what level the opposition are, and then deciding whether you, I don't know, need to up the ante a little bit?
yeah, sorry, that's actually 3. So if you want to include the Atletico game, the 3 matches since Liverpool have came back from this winter break, we're yet to hold the lead at half time, which I think is quite interesting.
Yeah, well, maybe that is it. Maybe it's assessing whether they need to up the ante, and also Liverpool are a blockbuster name. They've always been a big name, but certainly over the last couple of years they're like a blockbuster name. Now they've got a target on their head, and I think teams are producing an extra 10 or 20% on the normal performance levels when they face Liverpool, which does have an impact.
Yeah, I suppose you could.
I thought West Ham played fairly well actually, but I've watched West Ham a few times this season and they haven't been as good as that.
No, I watched them a week earlier against Manchester City and they offered virtually nothing.
Yeah,
Moyes was completely within his shell and was just focused on
game.
keeping the fixture tight. But I think he used slightly more adventurous players in this match. Obviously, Philippe Anderson started. He didn't start at Manchester City. That's actually the only major change, really, Philippe Anderson's inclusion. But he can obviously carry the ball up the field, so he's going to make a difference. I suppose you could put a little bit of it down to Liverpool facing 3 teams that are generally fairly well organised, would you say? I mean, Norwich, we said last week that they're not the best team in terms of individual, but they're fairly well coached. Obviously, Atletico Madrid are well drilled.
And Norwich seems to just perform above their average standard as well.
Yeah, and West Ham, David Moyes set the team up in a 4-4-1-1, but without the ball, once Liverpool had the ball in West Ham's final third, or certainly approaching that, they actually formed a 6-3-1. Don't know if you picked up on that.
Yeah.
Because it was just a complete straight line.
At times it looked like they didn't even have the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Liverpool were controlling possession, so that's obviously a difficult system to break down. That's complete contain. That's complete hold on, park the bus sort of thing. But yeah, Liverpool conceded as well from the first 2 shots of the match for West Ham. West Ham's first 2 shots actually found the net, which, again, if you look back at Liverpool's season as a whole, that does not tend to happen. No. That's one of the reasons we have such under control for the whole season, is because we're in control of the game state for large periods. And when teams do get shots, they don't generally find the net. So it was one of them weird games. A few things going differently compared to what's usual, but.
Do you think it was a lucky win?
No, I wouldn't say it was a lucky win, especially looking at the chances we did manage to generate towards the final half an hour, and certainly the XG captures a fairly dominant performance, at least in the second half. I think we did enough to win, but despite the expected goals figures and things like that, I would say that Liverpool weren't at the best. And I am hoping that the intensity we had to reach to win the game is gonna benefit us, basically.
Yeah.
But one interesting note from the game that seems to be a bit of a talking point that we're gonna now have a bit of an extended chat about is Naby Keita. Walking on eggshells here.
Yeah, I was going to say, batten down the hatches here.
Obviously, it's been a talking point since the game, because I think there's a wide variety of perceptions.
Seems to be 2 camps, doesn't it?
It does seem to be 2 camps, yeah. It seems to be very, very split down the middle of the people that are highly informed by statistics and numbers compared to the people that primarily focus on just watching the game, and what you see with your eyes is what you believe, sort of thing. So we'll go kind of step by step, not just through his performance on the day, but through, his overall situation at Liverpool, I suppose. So, on his actual performance on the day, what were your thoughts in the ground?
So I've decided to look at it at two ways, really. Well, actually, not even that. I'll, just for the purpose of the honesty of how I felt at the time, I'm going to disregard the numbers from the game, because obviously I've looked at them since. So if I disregard the numbers, I know, yeah. And base my opinion on what I watched at Anfield, I was fairly underwhelmed. I can't quite put my finger on it. It just, he didn't feel like he was really imposing in the game, and you know, kind of what we know about Keita and what we'd seen over in Germany, you'd have this perception, and he just, for me, Monday night, he didn't perform at that level, and hasn't seemed to done very much of it at Liverpool so far.
Yeah.
Why? What's your opinion on that question?
No, I was quite similar, to be honest. I was obviously surrounded by Reds, and you obviously hear the moans and groans when he does a certain thing wrong or whatever, and I think that does unconsciously shape your perception a little bit. But I thought he was okay. I thought he was, not terrible, but maybe not as impactful as he usually is. Usually he's playing. Yeah. And I think in this match maybe he was a little bit more in the periphery. I felt he was maybe a little bit slow in certain moments.
Do you feel like he was lacking a bit of dynamism and that explosive kind of edge he sometimes has?
That word you've just used there, dynamism, that's a word that I absolutely associate with Naby Keita. He's an extremely dynamic player. Not scared to be bold and take situations into his own hands, basically. But as I said, just a little bit more on the periphery than usual, but not terrible or anything like that. So, having felt that he lacked a bit of impact, obviously I've seen the stats after the game, and just to provide a bit of insight into what I mean by lacking impact compared to what we usually witness. He had, a week earlier against Norwich, he had 3 shots, 4 individual touches in the box, they're separate, penalty box moments, and 6 progressive runs. A progressive run is, a carry up the field vertically without taking a man on, which dynamic players tend to do. Players like Jack Grealish post a lot of progressive runs and plays like that. But against West Ham, 0 shots, 0 penalty box involvements, and 0 progressive runs. Having said that, he attempted 39 passes, completed 37 of them, so he misplaced only 2. But I will say there was a moment on the edge of our final third where he attempted to dribble past, I think it was Mark Noble. He ended up securing the ball, but Noble got his foot to it, and it could have been slightly dangerous if Noble got a cleaner touch there. But it was just, I've just been trying to work out since, I think, just why maybe we thought that he wasn't up to his usual game, because he clearly wasn't that bad, but at the same time I do think it's fair to say that he lacked his usual impact. Yeah, no,
can I be honest, this has been plaguing me a little bit since the game, and I was trying to summarise it in my head. I was lying in bed last night, couldn't sleep, and I was just thinking about this, and I knew we were going to talk about it, so I tried to kind of summarise it into, I suppose, a short paragraph on my thoughts, and I've kind of come up with that. I think it's fair to label Keita as a data player, isn't he? Like everybody who's firmly in the Keita support and group are all very reliant on his impressive creative numbers, and he's ranked very highly in a lot of metrics, doesn't he? But what I will say is, good underlying numbers alone don't make you a good player. But in the sense that, people forget that data it's a guidance tool, isn't it? But it needs to be incorporated with what you see with your eyes, basically, and with the stuff that isn't necessarily quantifiable in numbers. And obviously we're massive on data, but I think what we'll acknowledge that maybe others don't is there's still a lot that you can't quantify in numbers. At our level of the data that we have anyway. I'm sure clubs have something more high tech, but our level, and I'm just wondering whether that's the problem at the moment, where the numbers are there to see that he is a great player, but there's just things that you watch with your eyes, you know, the eye tests they say, and that's maybe where he's fallen short.
Yeah, I think usually whenever you look at his numbers, every performance, he usually has product to his game. He usually has output. That's what we deem as a data player, a player that's making an impact, a player that's, according to the numbers at least, dangerous and valuable and that sort of thing. As I've just said, then he had no shots against West Ham, didn't touch the ball in the penalty box, and no progressive runs, which is unlike him. But I know what you're saying in terms of stuff that you can't quantify. Just a few examples of those that come to my mind. Decision making, maybe. Tactical awareness. How vocal you are with your teammates, leadership. Just, you know, little things like that,
they're exactly
that do come into making a player.
Yeah.
They do come into forming a player.
And how do you quantify some of those things? It's not possible, is it, in numbers? Look, you wouldn't buy a player purely on data, would you? You use them to source a player, but you'll watch that player several times before making a purchase, and
then probably character profile them as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you know, it's a big mix of things, and I think this is what's causing such a split. Is you'll have people who are heavily reliant on data, similar to people to ourselves, and then you have people who watch and see that there's things that he isn't doing right, because look, you can't just disregard the opinions of, say, like 50% of a Liverpool fan base, because you've got metrics to say he's doing X, Y, and Z, because at the end of the day, if they're watching them week in, week out, you can't just value your opinion over theirs. That there has to be something there that's making people so undecided about a certain player. So I think it's a case of there is a really good player there, but there's things that he isn't doing right at the moment, or as good as he can do, and that's what's kind of causing this split in the fan base.
Yeah, I mean, there's some speculation, isn't there, as to why he was substituted. I am personally of the belief that, well, I know that Klopp very, very rarely makes a substitution before the hour mark. I think Keita came off in the 58th minute. That, to me, although we were a goal down, that to me suggests that Klopp was unhappy with something that he was seeing. Some people are inclined to think that, you know, we were a goal down, we needed a new option sort of thing. You're not going to take off one of the front three, you're not going to take off Fabinho, you're not going to take off any of the back four, so it's probably out of Wijnaldum and Keita. Wijnaldum had scored on the day. And played well, yeah, so I get that perspective.
I'd also even argue, and by the way, we're not going in on Keita at all, it's just a discussion. But
yeah, we've got positives to come.
Yeah. But I'd argue that Liverpool looked a little bit better with Chamberlain on the pitch as well. It kind of, his substitution coincided with a better Liverpool side, I thought.
Yeah, well, I think what Chamberlain showed maybe the impact that it felt as though Keita was a little bit more in his shell than usual. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Just another thing as well. Hopefully he listens. I'm not sure if he does, but Chris Williams tweeted during the game saying Klopp and Linders on the touchline, gesturing and shouting for Keita to move forward, and then in brackets 3 times. Doesn't, and then on comes Oxlade-Chamberlain. So it remains to be seen exactly why Keita was removed. It was earlier than usual, but you know, we leave that match behind. But what are your thoughts then on his time at Liverpool as a whole up to now?
So look, I think he has been unlucky. It's hard to play really at your highest level without a consistent run of matches, isn't it? And he's struggled for game time both seasons. Really, he struggled to solidify himself in the side, and I think that impacts your ability to perform at the top level. And I think a really good example of this is if you look at Fred at United. Now, he played around 1,700, I think it was, minutes last season, competitive minutes, and he looked poor, didn't he? Like, everyone was basically sniggering at the signing, and obviously Liverpool got Fabinho, and that looked fantastic, and United looked like fools, to be honest. But he's played nearly double that already this season, and he's developed into a key player. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's Liverpool's level at all, but I think it just shows when you're able to play on a consistent basis, you can start fine-tuning your game in matches and start being the player that you're meant to be. And I think that's what's harmed Keita a little bit since he's come in, really. He hasn't had that consistent run the side, and I think it's stopping him being the player that we saw in Germany.
Yeah.
Don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I think he has been really unlucky with the niggles that he's suffered. And I think that Liverpool play at a different intensity to virtually every side in Europe. And I think maybe his body dealing with the intensity in training day in, day out results in him getting very occasional, very slight little knocks that aren't big, but are just enough to keep him out the 11. And Klopp is all about momentum, Klopp's all about rhythm and things like that. And if a player's out, for example now Henderson's obviously out injured, if Oxlade-Chamberlain goes on a strong run now and Henderson returns to fitness, it's highly likely Oxlade-Chamberlain will stay in, because that's kind of how Klopp does things. The only player I can think that's come straight back in that midfield area is Fabinho. He's made efforts to bring Fabinho, reintegrate him after the injury, just because of obviously how important he perceived him to be. But I think, I must admit, in terms of where I thought he'd be by now, when we signed him, he is the player I expected.
Yeah.
Some people I think were expecting, I don't know, Zidane or something like that, but you could make a highlight reel of him.
Yeah.
Based on his time at Liverpool, based on this season, whatever. He still looked great.
And his metrics are really good.
Yeah, and his numbers are still great. He's still that output player. But I did think that by now he'd be maybe Liverpool's version of a Luka Modric sort of thing. I thought he'd have, obviously 19 months after actually making a move to Anfield, I thought he'd now be the Liverpool midfielder, and I thought that when Klopp picks his midfield, if he had a fully fit 11, I thought that Keita would be the first name on the team sheet by now, because we were buying a special player.
Yeah.
That just hasn't happened because mostly of injuries, sadly. Yeah, it's... Go on.
Can I just ask you something? I don't know whether you should, because there's still a little bit more I think we should say on him, but just while we're on it, would you ever consider, forgetting like selling him or anything now, would you ever consider loaning him out?
No.
Hear me out. Just to get a consistent run within a side. They have to be the right side in terms of getting him back up to his top level, maybe even a 6-month loan.
No, I wouldn't personally know. There's very few sides out there that would benefit Naby at the minute. You say, I don't know, I can't even think of these teams, but a lot of teams out there don't play like Liverpool, really, don't play to Liverpool's intensity and things like that, so he could go out and gain minutes and come back and still suffer from the same problems. And he's been away from Liverpool's development for them for 6 months.
I just think it's really hard though if you're not at the top of your game to get into the Liverpool side because they're so good.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
So I mean it's a conundrum, but I'm not even saying I would loan him. I'm just curious for your opinion, I guess.
Yeah. So in terms of like the stats versus the eye test sort of thing. What's your stance on that? Because obviously we try to consider firmly both, really, don't we? It's like a 50-50 thing.
It's probably just what I said earlier. I think he looks great in the data, and he has had some really good moments playing for Liverpool, but just not enough. And I think the reason he's splitting the fan base is because he's perhaps not doing the stuff not quantifiable as good, and that's what's sticking in the memory of fans and leaving a bit of a, I don't know, tarnishing their kind of narrative of how he's playing. So yeah, I think it's a mixture of the both, and I think maybe he is still the data player that we know, but he's lacking in other areas at the moment.
Yeah, I think my perspective on this, right, is I wrote about this week. Seems to have got a generally quite positive reaction, really. I think people have understood where I'm coming from and things like that. But I think he's in a little bit of a similar situation to Sturridge, right? And the reason I say that is because when Klopp came in, Sturridge was clearly one of Liverpool's quality players, clearly. But the problem was he could never play a consistent run of matches before picking up an injury. And with Klopp being aware of that, Liverpool have still got to continue developing. Liverpool have still got to continue moving forward. And if you're not getting a consistent run of matches and others are, they're going to go up while you maybe not go down, but you're maybe standing still or that sort of thing. And while Sturridge has spent a bit of time out here and there, Roberto Firmino's playing every single week, becoming a number 9, establishing himself, all that sort of stuff. And I think when we initially signed Keita, Alexander-Arnold wasn't at his current level in terms of the offensive capability he's got. Andy Robertson, again, I think he'd been in the side for about 6 months, just displaced Alberto Moreno. So again, he wasn't anywhere near as established as he is now. And I think Keita's came in, and the intention really, because Keita started, I think, his first 3 games immediately. Klopp doesn't tend to do that. Yeah. He usually gives you time behind the scenes. Keita came in immediately, played against West Ham. Don't think he got an assist, but he certainly got at least 1 hockey assist, which is the assist before the assist, for those that aren't aware. And I think he was then deemed to be a crucial, aspect of how Liverpool will play moving forward. But I think without him and having to use the likes of a midfield that consists of Wijnaldum, obviously I'll put into this as well that Oxlade-Chamberlain also suffered the ACL, so he was going to be out. So Klopp knew that really, week in, week out, he's going to have mostly a midfield of Fabinho, Henderson, Wijnaldum. Not a great deal of creativity there, not a great deal of penetration there. You got to get that from somewhere else. And I think over the course of Naby's time at Liverpool, Alexander-Arnold and Robertson have really developed into top playmakers. And it's resulted in Liverpool's midfield becoming basically a defensive phase area. Discipline, control, balance, and the fullbacks offer the penetration and the threat. So I think when Naby comes in, he conflicts that a little bit. Yeah. Because he is naturally just a creative player, an inventive player. He likes to take risks, likes to play his own game. He dribbles and runs forwards with the ball, dynamic and all that stuff. Yeah. He goes against a little bit how Liverpool have developed since he came. Yeah. You know what, I can only really add to that point. Plus as well, Liverpool actually signed him, am I right in saying, in the summer of 2017? Yeah. So just think about the side in the build-up to that signature when they would have been doing the detailed kind of analysis of him and thinking about recruiting him. Liverpool were a side not guaranteed the top 4 place, were they? It was a lot different to what we're seeing now. Had players like Emre Can and stuff in there. So they're kind of planning and looking at the squad and how he'll come in was what, 2.5 years ago. Since then, Liverpool have gone on to be a phenomenal side. They've progressed massively on the pitch. As you said, they've had players in different areas kind of reinventing where their creativity comes from, and that has meant that Liverpool's midfield is basically self-sacrificing. And I think Wijnaldum is a fantastic example of how that happens. Like, for me, Wijnaldum can play any role really across the midfield. We've talked about that loads of times. Like, look how he plays and where he plays for Holland. But yet at Liverpool, he's very reserved. He very rarely gets a man of the match kind of performance. He's very rarely involved in creating goals because he has to play within himself to do a bigger job for the side. And that's what's expected of this Liverpool midfield now. And maybe when they were looking at buying Keita originally, that wasn't the case. Yeah. I mean, I've just looked into that, what you've just said there. The summer that we actually officially signed Keita, a year in advance, the summer that we signed him, we signed Robertson as well. And in the season before, leading up to that summer, Alexander-Arnold started a total of 2 Premier League matches in the starting 11. So obviously by that stage, Liverpool was still very much progressing towards something, but it was kind of open to interpretation at the time, I suppose. And as I said, just the way things have worked out for Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain, I suppose, both because of injuries, not because of quality or anything like that. Just the way Liverpool's tactical makeup has shaped up in terms of the go-to system, the absolute Liverpool 4-3-3. I think Keita and Chamberlain are almost a little bit alternative to what the usual fit would be. They're not a Henderson, are they? They're not a Wijnaldum in terms of being a little bit limited, being very disciplined, not really focused on creating chances or shooting or anything like that. They're just fine with performing in an almost robotic role. So I think when Keita comes in, he will be a threat, more so than the lads have just named.
Yeah.
But when he gives the ball away a few times, people will maybe be a bit knocked by that because they're not used to seeing it from our usual central midfielder sort of thing. It's just, it's an interesting little prospect.
That's worth adding it, just to put kind of piece it all together. The reasons he's probably losing the balls because he's attempting to progress things a little bit more, which ties in with that point, doesn't it, that you're saying?
Yeah, well, I might as well use that as a
segue
to actually capture what Keita's doing and why Keita's deemed to be such a data player and he's so valuable beneath the surface if you can get him regularly involved. So this season, Keita's played a total of 987 minutes for Liverpool, and that's in all competitions. Wijnaldum has played 2,300 minutes in the Premier League alone. So based on those minutes, that works out roughly as about 15 full matches more for Wijnaldum. But despite that, Wijnaldum's assisted 7 shots in total. Keita has already assisted 15. Wijnaldum's played 8 through passes. Keita has played 20. These are attempts, by the way. Wijnaldum's played 27 passes into the box. Keita 34. Wijnaldum's attempted to score 25 times. Keita 23. And again, that's despite Wijnaldum playing over double the minutes. So Keita is just generally, when he's on the pitch, Liverpool is just much more likely to score. He's just a more dangerous player overall. As I said, the only problem with that is it's just whether you always want that, because obviously you don't want a team full of planks.
Yeah.
You don't want a team full of crabs, do you?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you'll never score. But
what's the saying? Too many sheriffs, not enough Indians. Or is it
I suppose. Yeah,
that's basically what it is. You don't want too many offensive players because you obviously need some to.
But that's it. If you have too many sideways players, you'll never score. If you have too many risk takers, you'll never be in control. So I think Keita was initially signed as a risk saver for Liverpool. You know, a real playmaker who can make a difference in the final third and things like that. But just because of how Liverpool have silently developed while he's been picking up these slight knocks, he just now looks a little bit like an alternative fit in the usual system, and that's not a bad thing. You want variety in the squad. But he came in, I think, as a pillar that we were going to build around, maybe, and he needs to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's still not a guaranteed starter, is he?
Yeah, which is a bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a surprise, yeah. I will say, though, that against West Ham, he was used on the right of the midfield three, and I like him on the left. I think the way he uses the ball and the angles that he opens up on the ball is just much more suited to the left side. So I don't think that's great for him. So in terms of the future, what do you think the future holds for Keita? Obviously, we don't want to be ridiculous here and get out of hand or anything like that.
I don't know. Look, I don't think he should be written off at all.
No.
There's plenty to suggest that he could be successful at Liverpool. It'll just be an interesting 12 months, I think. I think he's still got a future, but he ideally needs to just stay fit. And if he does, I think he's the type of player that with consistency, he'll start improving his overall performance levels. And I think then he could potentially be that player one day. Because I just, at some point, I expect to see Liverpool's tactics evolve anyway, because that's just how football works. Sides, steam ahead, come up with a tactic that wins them things, makes them the dominant team, but then the opposition find ways to counter that, and then those sides have to evolve again. That's just how football always works. So Liverpool are going to have to eventually evolve the tactics and change the way they're playing, and I could imagine him to be a big player in that when that does happen.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that, I just said then that I like Keita on the left of the midfield. That's obviously Wijnaldum's role. Wijnaldum's the established player in that role. What I will say though is that Wijnaldum's now 29. With time, it's likely that if Keita can be available enough, perhaps he's got enough, about him to establish, to almost nudge Wijnaldum out as Wijnaldum starts aging a little bit. Keita very recently turned 25, so he's still got time on his side, but at the same time, and bear with me when I say this, there's a little tiny bit of a fear in the back of my head that he's maybe following the route of a Jack Wilshere. And what I mean by that is, Wilshere always clearly demonstrated a real unique ability in comparison to other centre midfielders. And it always felt like people were saying, just wait until Wilshere starts getting going. Wait until Wilshere establishes himself in the starting lineup and plays a full season and all that stuff. And he just never did. And before you knew it, he's 29, he's 30.
Yeah, his career's over.
Obviously, Keita's only 25. You've got plenty of time on his side. And as we capture with the analytics and the data and stuff like that, he is an incredibly unique player. If Liverpool can, as I said, I compared him to Luka Modric before. He can become a Liverpool version, if you like, of Luka Modric for me. But you better not have just sighed then.
No, it's not. No, I do. I agree.
Yeah, it's just.
I just keep thinking about Keita and Jack Wilshere. And, yeah.
No, he's just a player that I thought would maybe have established himself a little bit more at Liverpool by now. But 19 months later, there's still no real... I still feel as though I'm waiting for an extended period in the side before I definitively judge the player, do you know what I mean? But it doesn't feel like we're getting that. And obviously it'll be interesting to actually check when his contract runs out and stuff like that. But from the data perspective, which is what we try to focus on this show, he's a very, very dangerous player. He's in the mould of Salah in terms of just offering output, offering stuff that is basically valuable on a football pitch, end product, with and without the ball, which a lot of midfielders can't do. Hopefully he continues to improve and stuff like that, and hopefully he reaches a point whereby he gets into Liverpool's 11 and doesn't really leave it. Because I think Liverpool ultimately become a more dangerous team with him in it. But maybe he's just taking a little bit longer to develop as we'd hoped. Something like that.
Yeah, I've got a little to add to that, mate. I think that's a good roundup of the situation.
Didn't want to be too harsh, didn't want to be too...
No, I think that's level, yeah. I think that's fair.
No need to get carried away anyway. I mean, I suppose Henderson's only been injured for one match and he came in for that one match, and the only reason we're really addressing this in the detail that we are is because he seems to be such a talking point. But we'll see how he goes anyway. So, move on to Watford. A team that feels like we previewed very recently, but it wasn't actually.
No, I was about to say, it was the back end of last year, so 2 and a bit months.
Yeah, so it was Pearson's first game, actually. And since that game, they are 10th in the table based on Pearson's time in charge. 9th for goals scored, 10th for goals conceded, 10th for XG, it's a theme developing, and 12th for expected goals against. So another one of those very vanilla teams,
you know what?
Just middle of the road.
But they're exactly what I thought they were anyway, or what they should have been.
Yeah.
Even when they were where they were at the foot of the table, they did kind of feel like a mid-table side that were just underperforming, a little bit unlucky. I think I might have said that on the last preview of them. So yeah, Liverpool facing a side who are bog standard mid-table.
Yeah, but with good qualities when they've got everyone fit at least. I liked what he did initially. Obviously he moved it to a 4-2-3-1. physical centre midfielders in Doucouré and Capoue, and he used 2 outlets on the flanks.
I do like Doucouré, by the way. Just want to point that out. He's a good player.
I like Sarr as well, who I was just going to mention. Good player. And
although he missed the sitter, didn't he, in Anfield?
Well, I think he's out anyway for this game, thankfully, because he can actually carry the ball up the field.
Yeah.
I think Pearson said before the last match that they had against Man United that he was not even close.
No.
So if he's not even close for United, surely he can't start against Liverpool.
Who else did you say? Deulofeu?
Deulofeu, yeah. I think that's what he seemed to build it around for me. 2 physical centre midfielders and 2 wide players who can carry the ball. That was how I viewed it.
Yeah.
So they sat in a block, and then as soon as they won the ball, those 2 wide players or one of the 2 centre mids just drove them forwards. And it worked well. They were organised in the first couple of weeks, but I think they've hit a sticky patch recently.
Yeah, they've lost, obviously lost to Everton, lost to United. Although, what I will say is I did watch bits of that United game, and they have a goal disallowed for VAR at a crucial moment, and I do think that has a huge psychological effect when you think that I can't remember if that was to level the game or take the lead, one of the two, and it I think it's difficult when the players on the pitch to shake that lingering kind of injustice, even though it was the correct decision, and then they go and end up losing 3-0. But it didn't feel like a 3-0 game. I'm basically, in a roundabout way, is saying that it might be a half competitive game for Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, just on that sticky patch I've just mentioned there, the last 5 Premier League games, they've lost 3 and drawn 2, which I hadn't personally picked up on. I didn't realise the form was actually that bad. Obviously they suffered a recent 3-0 loss to Manchester United, and on the attacking side maybe this stems from the loss of Sarr, but 7 shots against Man United, 5 shots against Brighton, 11 against Everton, and only 8 against Villa, who are renowned for being wide open, really.
Conceding loads.
So they don't seem to have a great deal in attack, and considering you're facing the best defence in the league in Liverpool, I'm inclined to think that we're going to maybe face no more than 4, to be honest.
Well, they rely a lot on, like, Deulofeu, for example, is a good player, but he's highly inconsistent. So he can produce like a match-winning performance one week, but then the following 5 or 6, he'll just be rather mundane and
invisible.
Yeah, invisible. Yeah, and when you're relying on those players as your main form of attack, it means that a lot of games you're not going to have much to offer offensively. So it'll be interesting to see what Deulofeu turns up against Liverpool.
Yeah, I think they'll benefit from the fact that they're at home, but I think that regardless they're going to relinquish possession, because 44% on average since Pearson's time in charge. They've posted above 50% possession once, and that was against Villa, and that was 51%. So they don't want the ball, basically, as I said. They sit in the block and they'll try and counter you.
Defence first, attack second, isn't it, really, that kind of philosophy?
Yeah. To be honest, it's been a recurring theme for Liverpool since the break.
Yeah.
Because we faced Norwich, who did similar. Then we faced Madrid, Atletico Madrid. Then we faced West Ham, back 6. And now we're going to face a very reactive side in Watford. So maybe it's good practice ahead of the second leg. What I will say, attacking Watford, is that they seem very vulnerable to make 2 fast attacks. You know, in the transition when the play is a little bit open. They conceded past few of their goals in that manner. They conceded against Greenwood on the weekend. Good goal, actually.
Conceded one against Everton that proved to be the winner as well.
Yeah, well, on Everton, that's the next weakness that I've got labelled down there, set pieces.
Oh, yeah.
Everton obviously scored 2, didn't he?
Yeah,
in the space of about 2 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
But both of them, Everton seemed to target the back post of Watford, and I looked at why. And a few weeks earlier, they'd faced Burnley without Pearson in charge, but they conceded a similar goal against Burnley at the back post. So that's one to watch for the Liverpool game. Set pieces being delivered towards the back post and whether we score from them or not.
What I'm going to say for people to watch out for is I can imagine Liverpool are going to attempt a lot of the short corners and then so say like Robertson to Trent and then Trent swing it in and Liverpool overload the back post, because I think they were doing that a little bit against West Ham, and as you've just highlighted, Watford a week there, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Robertson, Trent into the box near the back post on like the second phase, Van Dijk knock it down or someone put it in.
Yeah.
That's me tip.
Put a fiver on that one.
Yeah.
So verdict then?
Oh, yeah, I'm not going to say comfortable, because as I said, a lot of people are giving Liverpool a game at the moment, and maybe they're struggling a little bit just to get back up to where they were, but I still fancy Liverpool. I'm going to go 3-1.
I'm going to go 2-0, I think. I can't see them scoring based on the recent attacking displays, especially without Sarr. They just can't seem to get up the field and create chances and things like that. So yeah, thanks for joining us, Dave.
Thank you, mate.
Hopefully we provided enough balance on Naby Keita today. We obviously didn't want to come across too negative or too positive. I think both sides have got legitimate concerns and stuff like that.
Yeah, do let us know unless it's abuse, in which case just don't.
But we are still in this camp, aren't we?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I said it's about providing like a objective analysis on the situation, and I just don't think you can be there like with your eyes closed saying I think how great he is. You need to add a little bit of perspective.
I think it's important to point out what he's really, really good at and what he's offering, which is hopefully what we did.
Yeah,
but also point out that those that have some concerns about his development, his standing in the squad, his performances when he gets a chance, I think they have a reasonable point that I suppose needs explaining. So
definitely
keep the faith with him anyway. Thanks for joining us anyway, and we will see you next week.
Cheers.
Ta.